We need doctors. And today we're looking at the journey to becoming a physician through two lenses: the beginning of medical school and the perspective of a seasoned physician who has already walked the path. If you're a doctor, healthcare leader, or patient, you belong here. I'm Kim Downey, and this is Stand Up for Doctors, conversations at the intersection of connection, courage, and the future of healthcare. This episode is sponsored by Brian Case at Direct Wealth Care, helping physicians navigate the financial stress no one talks about in medicine with conflict free tools and resources. And today I would like to welcome Dr. Jonathan Block and Blake Kendrick. Thanks for joining us today, Jonathan and Blake.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. By way of a very brief introduction, Dr. Jonathan Block is a urologist and president and founder of Pierhead Lighthouse, and Blake Kendrick is a first year medical student at Western Kentucky University. And I would,
Kentucky.
oh, sorry.
Sorry, no, I think I forgot to send the introduction. That's my bad. Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine. My apologies for not
Uh,
sending that earlier.
oh, okay. No worries. Okay. All right. We
Oops.
got that straight. We'll fix it for the show notes. So thank you. And so why don't we start with you, Blake? What would you most like our audience to know about you as we begin our conversation? And this is spontaneous, but feel free to share a fun fact if you would like to do so. I don't want to put you on the spot.
Oh no, it's okay. Thank you. And thank you again for having me. So yeah, like I said, I'm a first year medical student at the Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine. We're actually almost done. We have one more block left, so almost a second year. But yeah, a little bit about me. I love to lift. I love going to the gym. That's one of my favorite things to do. Helps de-stress. Like to play a lot of games, and I could talk a little bit more about that later because I have some interest in those too. I actually did esports at Western Kentucky University in my college, so I technically was a D1 athlete. I got paid to play games. That was fun. I really enjoyed that. I also love to cook, and I have an interest in nutrition, and that was given my biochemistry background at Western. That was what I majored in for my undergrad. So I really like biochemistry also from like a nutrition perspective. And I guess a little fun fact, I can Mongolian throat sing. I don't know when I found out I could do it. I don't know how I found out I could do it, but I can.
So it's
So,
you said throat sing? What a I
yeah,
don't
Mongolian throat sing. It's like I can't really explain it, but it has this very distinct sound and you can feel it like rattle in your head when you vibrate your vocal cords a certain way. And we're actually on head and neck right now. So, or well, we did head and neck last block, so I learned about the larynx and I was like, "Oh, that's cool."
Wow, well, that is super cool. So you're welcome to demonstrate at any point during this episode if you would like to do so. No pressure. I'm in my church choir, so I would be particularly interested, or maybe when we press stop record. But thank you
Yeah,
for
I can.
yeah, thank you for sharing all of that, Blake. And I love it that you have outside interests, and I hope that you're able to continue with those during your path through med school and residency, as challenging as it would be. I think you understand how important that is to keep parts of yourself. So,
Definitely.
yeah. Jonathan, what would you like us to know about you?
So, Blake, I know what throat singing is. Mongolian. There's actually a group that I follow on YouTube that they're really good. They mix the Mongolian sound with modern, pretty much heavy metal. So I know
Is it
exactly what you're
who?
talking about. And like Blake, I love to cook. I'm most at home in the kitchen. That's my de-stressor. In fact, when I was in college, I almost thought of not going to medical school and going to culinary school instead. So that's a little tidbit about me. But the most important thing is that people should know is I just retired from full-time urology last month, the end of last month. I and this is very salient to our conversation on the burnout because I am one of those people who felt it and retired early in part because of it.
Well, thank you for sharing that and congratulations on your retirement. So, there's so much we can get into. And Jonathan, if you would like to go first, and you can share a powerful story. And one thing I want to get into during the episode, so whether your story is related or not to this, it's okay because we could dive in later. But a question I wanted to ask you is what you'd tell your younger self that would be most helpful in making the path to a career in medicine sustainable today.
Same thing I said a few days ago when I was talking to my family and my wife, don't do it. So modern medicine is very different than when I went to medical school. It's incredibly different. I'm actually in the process of working on an article for LinkedIn about this in some respects. When we go to medical school, we're trained as clinicians. We're focusing on the medicine. What's good medicine? What's good care? Evidence based care. But we lose sight of several other things. First, we're not trained at all in the business of medicine, which is absolutely necessary these days. If you look at the statistics, the majority of practitioners coming out in the United States are going into an employed corporate model, and they are woefully unprepared for that. So I would have told my younger self in medical school, start reading then. I had to play catch up once I was in practice. It would be helpful to hit the ground running when you're already a student, or at worst, when you're a resident. But residents don't have a lot of time to do that catch up learning because they're so focused on their particular field. The other thing I probably would have told myself is to really get a better look at the depth and breadth of alternative fields that are out there. In medical school, you are only showcased certain isolated fields based on your exposure, your clinical rotations, and you have very limited time for any type of elective in your fourth year as a medical student. The exposure to what's really out there and potential in medicine is limited compared to the vast number of fields of actual medical care that we never ever encounter. You know, there's very little exposure in medical school in bariatrics, which is becoming huge, but there's also deep sea medicine, there's public health, occupational medicine. There are so many vast numbers of fields in lifestyle medicine, preventive medicine, functional medicine that medical students are never exposed to. If I had to go back and tell myself, I would have said research all of those because you might find a field that would actually have done better for you. The reason being is, look, I'm one of those people who admits I was getting burned out. For the last 2 years, it was becoming a struggle, and the last year was difficult between the regulatory environment, the corporate environment, and just trying to balance everything in work life. There are other alternative fields that are better at that, and urology. I believe it was 2 or 3 years ago, urology was ranked as the number one burnout specialty in medicine.
Hmm. Wow. Well, that's very powerful and that's very good advice. And now my mission statement has been to build connection and create advocacy for healthy doctors. So many people have told me I'm already doing that. So I'm working on revising my mission statement. So at first I was going to go with make medicine sustainable and human again, where doctors can practice with joy, meaning, and fulfillment. Because as I said, like the future of medicine depends on the well-being of doctors. You know, we need doctors. So I'm thinking of modifying that to like amplifying physician voices and stories to connect doctors, foster innovation, and expand access to support. Because we have to find ways to make medicine sustainable, and doctors need support and they need to be able to connect, to innovate, and all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So Blake,
Agree.
if that brings anything to mind for you, what we've said so far, and then I would like to ask you also what's on the foremost minds of med students today.
Yeah. And Jonathan, the only experience I have really with like that system is like I shadowed in a nephrol, and I'll get into what's on the mind of medical students here in a second. Is that like when I was shadowing nephrology, it was really just about not getting somebody better, but just preventing them from getting any worse. I don't know if that's how it's like with urology at all. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Actually, urology as a surgical specialty is the simplest way in a surgical field is see a
Okay.
problem, fix a problem. That's how
Okay.
we do. There are some preventive aspects. Urology has been touted as the preventive medicine, the family practice of surgical specialties for men's health. But really, like most surgical specialties, it's a see a problem, fix a problem.
Okay. That makes sense. I like learning about everything in real time. It's as well as what you mentioned about like preventative care, lifestyle medicine becoming a really big thing. I can see myself probably going in that direction. Um, something an outpatient maybe so I can like exercise my passions and like lifting.
Perfect.
And there's yeah, like you said, there's all kinds of cool stuff emerging. I didn't know about underwater or like deep sea doctor.
Yeah,
That's cool.
they're usually attached with the Navy, with some like NOAA.
Hmm.
There are so many fields of medicine that unfortunately, Blake, you're never going to be exposed to because you're gonna learn your core requirements. And medical school is designed to get you ready on your core requirements.
Hmm.
Get your USMLE, get your boards, pass your exams and pick a specialty. The problem is that the number of specialties out there are so vastly greater than what you're exposed to. It's difficult for students. And I've seen people actually go back and change later on. I actually got my dual board certification, and I'm board certified in obesity medicine. I had an interest in that.
Oh,
And
cool.
yeah, yeah. So I'm actually shifting. I'm actually in a dynamic shift. I've retired full time from urology, and I'm going to start looking into expanding into wellness, preventive weight management care.
Wow. Well,
That's
and I
that's
think
awesome.
you're right. And it's a great example that it's never too late, meaning, right, that there's many ways to be a doctor and use your medical training. So for Blake to hear this conversation so early, he's already learning. Like I wasn't specifically familiar with deep sea medicine, but now that you mentioned, I could imagine that. And I'm sure even with astronauts, right, there's doctors who
Right.
would specialize in space medicine. So,
It's called aerospace medicine. When I was in
oh,
the Air Force, that's a subset. It's, flight surgeons. Flight surgeons specialize in aerospace medicine.
Mhm.
So I wasn't a flight surgeon. I didn't go that route. I was just a general medical officer. But flight surgeons, aerospace medicine, I'm telling you, there are so many vast number of fields that we never get exposed to in medical school.
hmm.
Yeah. Right now, I mean, all we're focused on, like, it's just what we can do in the moment. Like right now, I mean, I can only speak from a first year medical student's perspective, but it's just surviving the next steps and just doing like the training that we're going through right now and doing well academically or surviving or doing well academically. Some people thrive and they just want to do like really good GPA. Um,
Blake, you just touched on something that is incredibly important, and this is a skill that you need to learn early because, again, it's tough to play catch up. You're in
mhm.
survival mode. You're learning, you have a test, you study for the exam, and you go to the next project. You have to start thinking about thrive mode. How do you
Yeah.
start to thrive? And that comes from work life balance, doing what you enjoy. And you're already on that path with, working out, your nutritional, your cooking. So, we have to learn to stop surviving and learn to thrive.
Yeah, I think I've done a pretty decent job at that this semester. I mean, at first it took me a while to get adapted. I mean, I'm thankful to have like a good support system as a mentor. He's like kind of helped me learn how to do that. But yeah,
Yeah.
like I mean, I'm still going to do things I enjoy. I figured out that there's a certain like 80% level of effort that I can achieve, and that's good enough to get
Sorry, my phone.
the huh?
Sorry, my phone's going off.
Oh no,
I
you're
Oh,
can,
good.
we couldn't hear it.
I realized there's like a law of diminishing returns when it comes to like studying so much. I was like, okay, this is just the amount that I need to study to do well in all my courses. And if I can like get good grades, go to the gym, cook, and do everything else I enjoy doing, like I think I'm doing pretty good. Um, so I mean, in our downtime, like we also will think. I mean, yeah, we'll think about like what we want to do long term. Like I'm still thinking about how I'm going to put together like what I want to do because I don't see any like specific specialty besides maybe like family medicine that will give me like the means to carve out my own little niche doing like lifestyle and preventative care.
like, keep your
Um,
mind open.
yeah.
Keep your mind open. When I applied to medical school, I thought I would become an endocrinologist. That was my thinking. My father passed away when I
Mm,
was 8 years old from end stage diabetes. Back then, it was horrible. They couldn't control it. When I was in medical school, I thought the same thing. Maybe I'll be a family practitioner. I'm going to take my surgical rotation, the first rotation, third year, and get it out of the way. And I
Hmm.
found I fell in love with surgery. And then I said, oh, if I'm going to be a family practitioner, I should learn some urology. That's very common, men's health.
mm,
And I did a sub rotation while I was in general surgery, fell in love with urology, absolutely fell in love with it, but you don't know yet. You don't know what
no.
your path is going to take. So I'm just asking, keep an open mind because you may wind up meandering, and then you'll find your niche.
Yeah, I trust that it will come together over time as long as I keep an open mind. I trust that like it'll feel right when it comes.
Hmm. Well, that's good. Well, Blake, would you like to share anything that's foremost on the minds of medical students today?
Yeah, just surviving mostly from my interactions with classmates and talking to them. It's just like surviving the next steps.
So,
Basically
I
it.
I often say that the cult because what I've learned a lot in the last few years. I almost feel like I went to med school and residency vicariously, right through all the stories I've heard. And I always say that the culture of medicine has to change and it has to start in med school. Because, like you guys are taught, the patient always comes first, but it's not true. Like you have to care for yourself. Of course, if you're running a code or performing a surgery, yes, right? But just to have that ingrained in you all the time, because then when you graduate, right, it just becomes ingrained in you, and then everybody comes before you, right? And that's how people like get burned out, neglect their own personal care.
Mhm.
So Jonathan, would you like to speak to like action steps, like who can we tell and how can we get on the path of changing the culture beginning in med school? Because it shouldn't be just surviving.
This is a difficult one. Medical school, I'm going to preface this by saying I apologize to the academics that are out there that may be listening, but I am an opponent of academics. I was in private practice, and on the side, I do a lot of consulting work in specific areas. And I find that academics who run medical school, they are isolated. I like to say that they exist in their ivory towers. They don't really understand the true machinations of modern healthcare because they're isolated from it. They don't really have to deal with a lot of the economics, financial constraints. They're backed by these major integrated networks, these large institutions with endowments. They have some isolation. So the key is, I would say, is they need a better integration of what's out there with private practice. But one of the best ways they can start to change medical school is they need to introduce humanization. They
Mm-hmm.
need to start changing the thinking that, like Blake is saying, and I went through this. The thinking hasn't changed since I was in medical school between 91 through 95. And from my older colleagues, it hadn't changed since the 60s and 70s either. It's a survival mode. Study, take your test, move on. Study, take your test, move on. And it's very dangerous. We're finding that burnout rates are increasing, and we're facing a huge cliff in the United States. And actually, when I've spoken to colleagues around the world, I have colleagues in Canada, England, Australia, I've spoken with, they face the same thing. The burnout rates are increasing. People are retiring earlier. Population is aging, getting sicker because of our nutrition is poor, obesity is increasing. So that's putting massive pressure on the system. And what's happening on the flip side? People who are the caregivers are leaving because they're getting more burned out. And it's a self fulfilling prophecy in a negative spiral. As more people leave, the ones who are left work harder and it burns them out even faster. And we're seeing this not just in physicians, we're seeing this in physicians, advanced practitioners, nurse practitioners, PAs. We're seeing it in nursing. Nursing is going through a massive transformation right now where we're seeing large numbers of nurses leaving the field, going into alternative fields. Bedside nursing is essentially facing a desert. And I read these articles, but we don't know how we're going to fix this yet. And there's an old commercial. I don't know if you know, it's an old commercial. Blake, this is way before your time, so forgive me. It's an old IBM commercial, and they're sitting there and they have catapults of money and they're throwing it at the castle. And the manager comes over and goes, "What are we doing?" And he goes, "Well, we're trying to solve the problem, so we're just throwing more money at it."
Yeah,
And
right.
that's kind of the running joke in medicine, is that we just need to throw more money at it, but that doesn't work. We need to leverage our human side. We can leverage AI. We can try to shore up our gaps, but with reimbursements dropping, costs increasing, inflationary pressures, people leaving the field, it's becoming so pressurized that something's going to break, and unfortunately, it already is.
So I'm very vested in making things better for doctors. And my primary driver is I believe you both know that one of my own doctors died by suicide, and I felt a calling to support doctors, and it's become my life's purpose. And also, whether I had cancer 3 times and a complication from my first surgery, and I'm dependent on medications. I know I'd be dependent on one, but I'm dependent on multiple, medications to keep me alive. So I had said, so Blake, speaking to nephrologist, a shout out to my own nephrologist. I love him. And I said to him, joking around once, because I know things are challenging for doctors, I said, it's not lost on me. If you ever got fed up and went to live on an organic farm or opened a pizza place and nobody replaced you, like I would literally die. So I better be grateful to doctors. And I may have shared that before, but I wanted to share it because I deeply understand it. And to your point, too, yeah, he's just trying to keep me, from getting worse. Like that's totally when you said that, I'm like, oh yeah, like that's actually true. But we need to focus on solutions. So Blake, even as a first year medical student, is there things that you or the other students talk about that you feel like could be shared or could make things better that you feel comfortable sharing?
No, I mean, I want to, but no, not really. That doesn't really get talked about in our spheres. It is very much just like focused on the academic side of what we have to get done. It is very much like, I mean, at the very beginning of the first year, everybody's like in this weird like survival mode, but they're also like kind of like buddy buddy, and then everybody kind of like goes off and does their own thing and goes through the motions of the academics. Um, I mean, I mainly talk to like like my mentor. I'll talk to him about the kind of stuff like this, but between the students, no, not really. Um,
So
and I
even
mean, I'm not sure what to make of it really. It's
Blake,
because
can
I
I
mean,
ask
I
a
can't.
question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, are you not sure of what would make it better because you're so focused on your survival mode, or because you're still just finishing your first year and have not a lot of exposure yet, you don't know where to focus?
The latter, the latter,
Okay,
really. I mean, I haven't had to deal with like anything like billing or anything like that. I mean,
thank God you haven't
I
yet.
can pose all kinds of ideas, but they're just not going to be realistic until I've actually experienced those kind of pitfalls and difficulties. I can always be hypothetical for my first year medical student's perspective, but realistically, I can f form a proposal or solution.
So one thing I've also spoken about is I feel like doctors should have a buddy system, just like they do in the military, someone that's really that they can look out for with each other. Like, how are you doing, or how are you really doing? And if you're in regular contact, when you just banter about the small things, then when the bigger things come up, you've already built a relationship and would feel more comfortable, I would think, being a little bit vulnerable. And I wish that could happen in med school. Like, have you ever experienced that or not, Jonathan?
Yes, we developed a peer support network in our institution where I was when I was chief of staff, when I was president of the medical staff. With the CMO, we created a peer support network, and we engaged sister institutions locally. One of the things we found as people progress in medicine, we're so ingrained in our ego that we have to do the right, we have to be the top dog, so to speak, that it's very difficult to let our guard down, especially for surgeons. And there are some surgical specialties that are worse than others. I won't call them out, but they're very ingrained and ego driven and focused, that for them to let their guard down around the peers they work with every day is almost a foregone conclusion that they cannot do that. So we had to develop relationships with sister networks. So if you wanted to speak to somebody, you would come into the peer support network and you would be paired with somebody from an alternative institution who really doesn't know you. And then you could just speak your mind. And we found that that was beneficial, but people still didn't want to avail themselves. People are still very ingrained once they get to become seasoned practitioners of these isolated egos that they're so success and focus driven. It becomes difficult for them to overcome that training. You have to remember, I mean, I came out of medical school in 95. That's a long time ago. It's, consider that you have somebody who's a seasoned orthopedic surgeon who's been in practice 20, 25 years. That's a lot of that's a lot of behavioral training to undo.
Hmm. One thing I like is that doctors are talking about these things on LinkedIn, and there
Yes,
are surgeons talking about these things on LinkedIn. And I'm actually pretty soon going to be interviewing two neurosurgeons who each wrote a chapter in our books and who are willing to be very vulnerable and share their stories. They've already been on individually, and I'm going to have them on together. And I say all the time, every time a doctor shares their story, another doctor feels less alone. So every time, a doctor will talk about these things, it chips away at the stigma. And if a doctor is listening that is struggling, there are resources such as the Dr. Lorna Breen Heroes Foundation, Physicians Anonymous, the Emotional PPE Project, the Physician Support Line, all of those things. But we need to get the word out about these, free and confidential resources and make sure that doctors know how to access them.
exactly. I agree. I agree. The first step is getting the communication, get the word out there, and start early. Blake, you might want to consider creating a group with your friends in the first year and then expand it. It could be as simple as every Friday night everybody gets together for dinner. We used to do this when I was a med student. Every Friday night, first and second year, we had a potluck dinner, and the group expanded. And we would sit around. We'd either play games, watch movies, but we would basically use it as a venting session to each other.
Hmm. And or even that brings to mind one of my PT friends from LinkedIn, Sharish Sachdeva, has a PhD in physical therapy, and he does this thing called Walk with the Doc, where they go out and they go for a walk, right? And other people can join them and go for a walk. So if you want to get a little movement in there, that's another option. So thank you for sharing that. Blake, is there any questions that you would like to ask Jonathan?
Yeah, what was your main reason for wanting to go into surgery specifically? Because I've thought about surgery. I hear sometimes it can be toxic, but I'm also like, is this a physiological need I want to satisfy? Because oh, it's just like everybody says, like working with my hands.
That is one of them, but surgery is a problem oriented field. See a problem, fix a problem. And
Okay.
it can be very transactional. And I like that type of medicine. See a problem, fix a problem. And I liked urology because it had more depth and breadth. Pediatrics, adult, geriatric, men, women. There were a lot of different variation. You have to pick the field that you like for a reason, and don't limit yourself. And you can always change. When I worked with medical students and residents, I always said, if you're not happy, you're doing something wrong, and there's
Yeah.
no reason you can't change. I've had seen many colleagues change. I'm an example. I'm in a shift right now. You can always change. So never feel yourself pigeonholed or limited in any respect. Find what you like and leverage it. And you may find that you like something that no one else would ever consider. This is your life, nobody else's. You don't have to please anyone but yourself.
Yeah, that's great advice. And Jonathan, is there anything else you would like to offer Blake at this time?
Honestly, Blake, reach out anytime you want. I'll help you however I can, your fellow students. I think one of the main goals as a seasoned physician is we always say we should train those behind us. You have enough people training you in the medicine. I think
Yeah.
it's more important to help you along the journey in all the other areas that they don't train you.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned earlier about this like buddy program, something
Mhm.
like that. So is this between like a higher physician and like a resident, higher physician student? What was the dynamic?
So the peer support was really on par level of colleagues because
Call it okay.
you want to be paired with somebody who understands. So when you have a problem, they understand. You can always go up, but it's tough to try to. It would be tough for me as a seasoned physician to have you understand what I'm going through, but I can understand what you're going through because I've been there,
Yeah.
plus some. So I would suggest starting in at your main level, but look at mentorships. Find a mentor of a seasoned attending physician that you can partner with where you are at school or your local hospital, someone you may have shadowed, and they can help you with perspective. They'll help you learn the things that the classwork won't teach you.
I think it's funny you mentioned that because I've actually been doing that for the last 5 years.
That's great.
It started all the way in undergrad, and I mean, has really helped me survive through medical school. And what you said about like think about what you enjoy doing, like, because I remember on the final takeaway question, it was like if there's one sentence that'd be a final takeaway, I was actually going to say think hard about why you enjoy what you do, because that's going to give you a reliable compass in life. But you already said that, so I was like, that's awesome,
Yeah, it's it's a truth that's existed since Plato. That's really what it is.
right?
You know, the answers really don't change, just the technology does.
Hmm.
Well, I love this, and I think that there's wonderful information here for med students all the way to seasoned physicians, right? And that you can change anytime, and peer support. You know, if you don't have it already, you need to find it, no matter your level. So, thank you for
Yep.
this excellent conversation. And if you had any additional take home action message for our audience, you can feel free to share it now. Jonathan, was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, nothing right now. Just be happy. Everybody needs to find their own happiness, work-life balance, and however you do it, that's on you.
Okay, that's great. Blake, did you have anything else to add?
I mean, basically, just think hard about why you enjoy what you do. Just basically on the same lines as what you said, Jonathan. Just make yourself happy. Enjoy what you do.
Enjoy what you do.
Yes, absolutely. We only have this one precious life. So, thanks again. And if today's conversation resonated with you, please like and subscribe, and you'll find more stories like this in our White Coats book series. And for those who feel called to go deeper, we'll be gathering this October at our inaugural physician retreat. Would be honored to have you join us. Links are in the show notes, including how to reach out to our guests. And please reach out if you're interested in sponsoring one or more episodes. It truly sustains this work. More information about sponsorship is also in the show notes. And in closing, to move the needle in healthcare, we all need to raise our voices and we all need to care about each other. We already know that doctors need to care about patients, patients need to care about doctors too. So stand up, doctors, and let's stand up for doctors.